Hey everybody, hope y'all are all doing good. I just want to come to you and share with you what's been going on with me and kind of what I've been studying right now in the Bible, and give you guys a little bit of insight on kind of what I've been discovering in my life, I guess individually, and hopefully it'll be helpful for you guys as well. So I've been doing some reflecting on joy. How's joy applied in our life? How is it expressed in our daily emotions? And the way that we express it and the way that we understand it, is it the way God actually designed it? So many of us struggle with our joy and struggle with happiness, and kind of comes and goes, and it's up and down a little bit. And I don't think that that's the way God's meant it to be done in our life, and the way He's meant us to express it and to understand it. So listen, Christ, the example that He's had for us in the Bible is explained in First Peter as inexpressible. It's full of glory, and that glory has a direct correlation with the fullness of our joy. First Peter 1:8 says, "Though you have not seen Him, you love Him. Though you do not now see Him, you believe in Him and rejoice with joy that is inexpressible and filled with glory." So a lot of times our joy isn't inexpressible. It's very mundane. It's very expressed, and it's kind of cheap, to be honest with you, in a lot of ways. And the kind of joy that God's talking about here is in a way that's inexpressible because the glory of God is inexpressible. So that tells me that our joy should be expressed as an overflow of our understanding and experiences in the glory of God. So the glory of God should then define our joy and be where we find our joy and get it from, and are full of that joy. So it's kind of different than how we experience it sometimes. You know, a lot of times we find our joy in things that are very, very cheap, very easy, very light. We find our joy in gas prices going down. We find our joy in eating a really good steak at the end of the day. Or we find our joy in baseball. We find our joy in football. We find our joy in entertainment. We're always entertained. We're always on our phone. We have such easily accessible entertainment. So really, it doesn't have an eternal weight or an eternal effect. All of those things and all of those conveniences that we find our joy in, they come and go. They go up and down. New fads come. There's new things that are taking our attention and providing us some type of joy, or what we think is joy. So when those things change or those things go away, or even when there's a storm in our life, we really are impacted heavily, because the things that we're finding our joy in don't mean much in the grand scheme of things and in the grand reality of things. And it's really not joy anyway, because the kind of definitions that we receive in the Bible are joy that are full of glory. So unless we're finding joy in the glory of God or doing things to the glory of God, then it's not really the true kind of joy that God was talking about in the first place. It may just be an emotional reaction to something that really doesn't satisfy. You know what I mean? So what is joy an expression of? We talked about that. Joy is an expression of the glory of God. Is it a reflection of something heavy, or something rooted in Christ, or something rooted in the world, something that's subject to change? So we've talked about that as well. So our joy really is meant to be found in the presence of God, and we kind of back that up in Psalms. If you look at Psalm 16:11, "You make known to me the path of life. In your presence is the fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore." So the closer we are to God, the closer we are to the right hand of the Father, the more full our joy will be, the more it will be everlasting and unchangeable. That's the kind of way I want us to start thinking about it, the joy in our life, and where we go to find that joy. Is our joy always an emotional expression? It can be emotional. In Psalms 168, it tells us that joy, y'all give me just a second to turn there. Should have already been there. Sorry, guys. Basically, what Psalms 168 is telling us is that our joy is more of a spiritual satisfaction expressed through the overflow of our love for Christ. And we'll read that here in just a minute. Another thing that I kind of wanted to look at and correlate it to our joy is really through a passage that we've all read and that we've all seen, but we don't necessarily relate it to joy. We kind of relate it to our spiritual well-being, but I think that our spiritual well-being is a direct relation with our joy. So we'll turn over to Matthew's chapter 7, 24 through 27. Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall, because it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. We see a direct relationship there with our joy. We need to be building our joy on the foundation of the rock, who is Jesus Christ, so that when the trials and tribulations and the winds blow in our life, our joy stands, and it's steadfast, and it is full in Christ. We should always build the foundation of our joy on a solid foundation, who is Christ. And Matthew 7, 24 through 27 is a complete explanation of how to build our joy on a solid foundation that is not easily shaken. If you get anything from this video, it's that our joy should be expressed fully by being fully satisfied in the glory of Christ.